My name is Havil. I'm 11 years old. And Maven, my younger brother, just 9 years old. We are the sons of Yuri and Olivia Zenk. Our father is one of the biggest oil and gas refining tycoons in the United States of America. And our mom? She owns a shipment agency in Texas. People say we were born with silver spoons in our mouths, but honestly it feels more like gold. We've traveled across the world. Paris, Dubai, London, New York, Tokyo, Rome, and Cape Town. We've seen the glittering towers, slept in the finest hotels, and walked the streets where dreams are supposed to come true. On holidays, kids in our schools would envy us, because we were always flying first class to the most prestigious cities on earth. But deep down, we envied the poor children our age, the ones living in the trenches. Why would two boys who had everything envy those who had nothing? You'll find out soon enough. Before we continue, give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and comment, "I'm ready to know," because we are finally glad to share our secret with the world. We grew up envying something money could never buy: freedom. Our lives were locked behind golden gates, guarded by men in black suits, cameras at every corner, and doors that only opened with codes. At first it felt like luxury. It felt like safety. But soon, it became a prison. Every morning we woke up to chefs bringing us meals on trays that smelled like heaven. The food was perfect. Too perfect. Steaks cut into neat slices, pancakes stacked higher than our heads, fruits carved into shapes of stars. But do you know what happens when perfection is served every single day? You get tired of it. You start craving the ordinary. We were tired of always playing games indoors on expensive consoles, tired of swimming in a pool that looked like an ocean but never felt like one, tired of being told, "Don't go there, don't run too far, don't talk to strangers." We wanted to explore. To touch the world with our own hands, not just through glass windows of tinted cars or vacation trips where everything was planned down to the minute. And when we looked at the children in the streets, we saw something we didn't have. Joy. Pure joy. They laughed while running barefoot in the sand, chasing tires, chasing each other, chasing nothing at all. They didn't worry about kidnappers, bodyguards, or paparazzi snapping their pictures. They didn't live behind walls. They could go anywhere their hearts desired, through narrow alleys, muddy fields, or rooftops that looked like freedom. In school, life was even harder for us. Everyone treated us like little gods. They didn't see us as Havil and Maven, two boys who wanted friends. They saw us as the Zenk brothers, sons of Yuri and Olivia, untouchable, untouchably rich. Kids whispered behind our backs. Some tried to be close to us, but it was never real. They envied us too much to truly love us, feared us too much to truly know us. And so, we were surrounded by people, yet alone. The strange part? The poor kids, the very ones everyone pitied, looked freer than kings. They didn't own the newest sneakers, yet their laughter was loud enough to shake the skies. They didn't eat five-star meals, yet their joy was raw and filling. They could play on the streets until sunset, return home covered in dust, and no one shouted at them for not wearing a suit or shining their shoes. We envied that life. We envied their freedom to be imperfect. Sometimes late at night we would sneak into our wardrobes and dig through our clothes. Behind the rows of polished suits and branded shoes, we found the old shirts, the forgotten jeans with tears, the sneakers with scratches. And secretly in our rooms we wore them. We stood in front of the mirror pretending to be poor. Pretending to be them. It sounds crazy, doesn't it? Two boys with everything, pretending to have nothing. But for us, that nothing looked like everything we had always wanted. We longed for a life where we could be ourselves. A life where friendship wasn't bought with the shadow of our father's money. A life where laughter wasn't something rehearsed for family photos, but something wild and reckless. The truth is, wealth gave us power. But poverty, at least the way we saw it from the outside, gave those kids something greater: belonging. And that, more than money, was what we craved the most. We wore the rags in secret at first. Old forgotten shirts buried at the bottom of our wardrobes, jeans with torn knees, sneakers with holes at the soles. We slipped them on and looked at ourselves in the mirror. For once, we didn't look like the sons of Yuri and Olivia Zenk. We looked ordinary. And strangely, that made us feel extraordinary. We went out to the pool dressed like that. Imagine it, two boys who were supposed to look like models for a magazine cover, now jumping around in dirt-stained clothes, laughing, splashing water like wild kids. For the first time in our lives, the laughter was real. Not the polite kind for family photographs, not the forced smile when reporters came around, real, reckless, belly laughter. But of course the guardians noticed. They always noticed. One of them rushed over, shaking his head. "Boys, you can't be out here dressed like that. Come on, change into something proper. Your parents would never approve." We didn't care. We refused. We waved them off like stubborn rebels, and the more they insisted, the more determined we became. The polished suits, the iron shirts, the shiny shoes, they felt like chains now. Every time they tried to get us to change, it only fueled our hunger for freedom. Because the truth was, we didn't just want to wear rags. We wanted to live in them. So we made a plan. A dangerous, ridiculous plan. Our mansion wasn't just a home, it was a fortress. Everything was automated. From the locks on the doors to the gates that stretched higher than trees. To step outside was impossible without codes. Codes only our parents and the head guards knew. But that didn't stop us. At night, while pretending to sleep, we whispered our dreams to each other. What if we could see the streets? What if we could run outside and no one followed? What if we could finally touch freedom? The problem was the roof. The roof was the only place that gave us a view of the world beyond the walls. But even that was locked. A digital keypad, a code, an invisible shield of authority stood between us and the sky. We had no access. Still, we weren't giving up. Every morning we would climb as far as we could, up the marble staircase past the top floor to the steel door that led to the roof. We would place our ears against it, listening, imagining the sound of wind on the other side. The guardians thought we were just exploring, but in truth we were plotting. We wanted to see the gates. Not from the tinted windows of the cars that drove us to school. Not from a distance. We wanted to stand before them, touch them, study them, and one day, open them. That became our secret mission. We started practicing how to act invisible in our own home. Sneaking past cameras, moving only when the red lights weren't blinking. Slipping behind curtains when the guardians passed. Timing how long it took before the auto locks clicked shut. We became soldiers of our own rebellion. And every time we wore our rags, it was more than dress up. It was training. Preparation. A way to remind ourselves that beyond the gates, beyond the luxury, we belong to something else. Something raw, something unpolished, something real. But the mansion fought back. The system was designed to keep us in. Automated doors would refuse to open when we lingered too long. Alarms would hum softly when we touched what wasn't ours. Guards pretended not to notice, but we saw the way they tightened security around us, the way they whispered into their earpieces, the way they never left us fully alone. And yet, the more they locked us in, the more we burned to get out. We began collecting things. Paper clips, pins, old toy parts. Anything small that could one day help us crack a code or jam a lock. It felt childish, but in our minds, it was survival. Every little piece was a weapon against the invisible walls closing in on us. Sometimes we would stand by the pool in our rags, watching the sun dip low, and we would imagine that one day we'd be out there, beyond the walls, running with kids who had no idea what it meant to be guarded 24/7. Kids who could eat roasted corn by the roadside without a chef in sight. Kids who could play soccer on the street with bare feet and no fear. We envied them so much it hurt. We didn't want our lives to be polished anymore. We didn't want to be treasures locked in glass cases. We wanted to be free, even if it meant being dirty, hungry, or tired. At least then, we would be living, not performing. And so, with torn shirts on our backs and wild ideas in our heads, we decided that the poolside games were just the beginning. We weren't stopping at rags. We weren't stopping at rebellion inside the mansion. We were going to see those gates. And one day soon, we were going to break free. When our parents returned home, everything shifted in an instant. The guardians were the first to inform us, whispering like soldiers who had just received their commander's orders. Your father and mother will be home in the evening. Just 3 days. Their eyes scanned us like lasers, warning us without words. We knew what they meant. No rags, no rebellion, no freedom. We had to put the masks back on. So we did. They laid out the silk shirts, the polished shoes, the iron trousers, and we slipped back into the skins we had been trying so hard to shed. Our hair was brushed to perfection, our nails clipped and polished, and our faces wiped until they gleamed. From the outside, we were once again the flawless sons of Yuri and Olivia Zenk. On the inside, we were rebels in disguise, and it stung to play the game again. The parents didn't notice at first. They never did. But the house helps. They saw everything. They had been the silent witnesses to our ragged rebellion. They were the ones who had tried to pull us back into luxury when we refused. And now, with the parents home, they reported it. We heard them one evening, standing at the far end of the hallway while our mother asked in her usual soft but commanding voice, "How have the boys been?" One of the house helps hesitated, then spoke with a voice that betrayed both loyalty and fear. "Madam, they have changed. Sometimes they wear torn clothes. Sometimes they play by the pool as though they are not your sons. They seem to envy the children outside." We held our breath, hiding by the staircase, listening to our secrets spill out like water through cracked glass. That night our parents called us in. They didn't shout. They didn't scold. They sat us down in the glowing living room, the chandeliers spilling soft light on their serious faces. Our father leaned forward, his hands clasped together, his oil and gas roughness softened only by the warmth in his eyes. Mother sat beside him, elegant as always, yet her gaze pierced us as if trying to read the truth behind our faces. "Tell us," Father said, his voice steady. "What's going on?" We smiled. We shrugged. We laughed as though it was the funniest thing in the world. "Nothing, Dad. Nothing at all." Mother wasn't convinced. "They say you've been wearing rags. Acting strange. Is it true?" We shook our heads, innocent as angels. "Of course not, Mum. We've just been playing." For a moment, the silence was so thick we could almost choke on it. Then they nodded. They believed us, or maybe they just wanted to believe us. Parents like ours didn't have time to dig too deep. They had 3 days. Just 3. And those 3 days weren't meant for interrogations. They were meant for displaying love in the only way they knew how, through more luxury. So they told us their plan. "We'll be here for 3 days only," Father said. We locked eyes, Maven and I, and in that one glance we celebrated. 3 days. Just 3. We could survive that. But outwardly we nodded respectfully. "We're glad you're here, Dad." "Mum." Inside though, we were counting hours, not days. The gifts came rolling in. More luxury, as if piling it higher would fix the cracks they didn't want to see. New gaming consoles with the latest releases. Designer sneakers straight from Paris. Smartwatches so advanced they looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. Our rooms were restocked with imported chocolates, rare perfumes, and glossy hardcovers of books we'd never asked for. They thought this would make us happy. And we played along. During meals we smiled and ate. During TV time we laughed at the shows even though our minds were somewhere else. At the dinner table, Mother would reach across to pat our hands, saying, "We love you boys. We're proud of you." Father would nod, tired but certain, his presence like steel trying to reassure itself it was unbreakable. And we nodded back. We pretended. Because to reveal our truth in those moments would have been to break them too, and deep down we didn't want to hurt them. But the clock was ticking. Each meal, each small talk, each forced laugh was a countdown. And in that countdown we felt freer because we knew, soon, they would be gone again. The guardians stayed sharp during those 3 days, watching us like hawks, making sure no trace of our rebellion slipped through the cracks. But they didn't see the fire in our eyes, the way we communicated with just glances, the silent pact we had renewed. When the 3rd day came, our parents hugged us. They kissed our foreheads. They promised to send more gifts. And then they left just as quickly as they had come. We waved. We smiled. We looked every inch the perfect sons they believed us to be. But the moment the gates closed behind their convoy, Maven and I rushed to each other, eyes blazing. The mansion was ours again. The masks were off. And this time, we were going further than torn shirts and poolside games. This time we were going to find the codes. We knew the roof was a dream too far, locked behind codes we had no business touching. But the garage door, that felt possible. From the garage you could see the gate, the men who stood by it, the world beyond the marble walls. If we could just watch them for a while, learn their schedules, their jokes, the way their eyes moved when the security van arrived, then maybe we could find a gap. Maybe that gap would be our moment. So we made a new plan. Every evening, after dinner and after the guardians thought we were safely tucked in, we pretended to be asleep. We timed it like a ritual. One of us would stay awake in the false dark of our room, listening for the soft thud of the guards' boots on the tiled floor. When the house hummed with the low drone of the overnight ACs, we would slip out, slow, careful like shadows, dressed in our torn shirts and old sneakers. The rags made us feel anonymous, as if someone else lived inside our bodies for just a few stolen hours. The garage door was massive and matte, the kind of metal that swallowed light. It had a keypad and a card reader, the sort of thing you see in films where people make daring escapes. We had watched the guards come and go through the tinted glass 100 times, seen the way they tapped cards, the way they joked with each other, the cadence of their cigarette breaks. We thought if we knew their rhythm well enough, we could find a moment when none of their eyes were on the camera. We began by mapping everything. One night we sat on the top step of the service stairs and whispered our observations into the dark. The tall one with the limp, he always walks to the left side at 10:12, Maven hissed. The younger one checks the side cameras at 10:15, I replied. He whistles when he's nervous. And the driver, Maven added, he parks the van, opens the back for deliveries at 10:30 every Tuesday and Friday. We wrote it all down on a folded scrap of paper we hid behind an old book. It felt like treasure mapping, only our treasure was freedom and the map led to a metal gate instead of gold. Night after night we spent at least 2 hours by the garage. Sometimes we crouched behind the hedges, counting the lamp's flickers. Sometimes we hid behind the stacked tires in the service corridor, listening to the guards' radios crackle. We learned their small habits. One liked to hum old songs, another tapped the rhythm of a football chant on his knee, the eldest had a scar by his eyebrow that twitched when he was lying. We learned the delivery schedule too, 3 times a week, always in the late evening, always a pause after the third beep of the intercom. That beep became our friend. We timed our breaths to it. Of course, we almost got caught the first week. We didn't run fast enough when a guard decided to take a longer cigarette break and stroll in our direction. He passed so close we could feel his shadow on our shirts. For a moment I thought the night would end, that the secret would splinter like glass under the weight of glaring shoes. But he only spat, coughed, and walked away, his cigarette smoke cutting through the air like a thin white flag. We held our breaths until our chests ached, then scuttled back inside, our knees trembling with the thrill of surviving. The guardians pretended not to notice that we returned a little dirtier than usual. They asked polite questions: did you sleep well? Why are your shoes wet? And accepted our sleepy murmurs. We became masters of small lies. We learned to smooth down our hair and wash at the basin until we looked presentable before breakfast. We learned to tuck our rags deeper into the wardrobe and fold away the evidence like guilty books on a shelf. As the days passed, our routine hardened into a kind of craft. We memorized the guard shifts, the angles of the cameras, the time it took for the gate to cycle open and close. We found a blind spot behind a rusted drainage pipe where the cameras didn't quite catch your face. From that place, on a night slick with rain, we saw the gate open wide for a delivery van and count the seconds until the driver turned his back. That night the world seemed to breathe with us. We whispered a plan in the dark. If the driver ever left the back open for too long, we would get a glimpse beyond the gate. If he didn't, we would wait. We became students of the mundane. The guards joke about their sons, the radio static at precisely 11:03, how the security light stuttered when the generator kicked in. We cataloged everything as if piecing together a machine from memory. 2 hours a day became our classroom. We would return to our study spots with pockets full of small finds, an unnoticed bolt, a scrap of receipt, a cigarette but with blue ink on the wrapper, and later examine them under a borrowed flashlight. They were clues to a life outside our glittering walls. There were days when we almost gave up, when the temptation to sleep in the warm sheets and forget the whole thing tugged at us with the delicacy of a whisper. But each time we thought of the poor kids, their barefoot chases, their unplanned joys, we found the energy to get up again. The longing pushed us. We weren't fooling ourselves. We knew these were childish methods, destined perhaps to fail. But childish methods had power. They made us brave enough to try. They taught us to be patient, to watch without being seen, to learn the rhythm of the men at the gate. They taught us to plan. And as the nights unrolled, our confidence grew. We could trace the delivery van's timetable in our sleep. We could predict the security chief's joke with a word and the guard's silence with a glance. We learned the precise moment the gate's hydraulic system hummed louder, a small mechanical heartbeat, and in that heartbeat lay our hope. 2 hours a day. That was all we asked for. 2 hours to study a life we had never lived, 2 hours to learn the map to the other side. 2 hours to teach ourselves that courage could be practiced, one small observation at a time. We had been waiting for this very night. Weeks of studying, hiding behind glass panels in the garage, counting every step the guards took, memorizing the beeping sounds of the control pad when the heavy iron gates opened and closed. Tonight, everything lined up. The delivery van came late, the way it sometimes did, and the men at the gate seemed less alert, almost sleepy under the dim floodlights. Our hearts were racing in ways we never knew possible. The air inside the garage was stale, trapped, recycled by the giant machines that kept the house alive. But when the van pulled up and the gates groaned open, a small breath of freedom slipped in. It wasn't much, just a rush of night air carrying the faint scent of wet earth and maybe smoke from somewhere far away, but to us, it was everything. We felt alive in that single second. We crept forward, toes barely touching the cold tiled floor, afraid even our breathing might echo too loud. The van idled, its engine coughing and rumbling. One guard signed a clipboard, another waved the driver in. The gate, taller than any building we'd ever stood under, rolled wide enough for us to see beyond. And for the very first time in our lives we saw the street outside, not through tinted car windows with security around us, but raw, unfiltered, just there. We caught glimpses. The cracked pavement. The flickering street lamp. The dark sky unguarded by cameras. Somewhere a dog barked. We almost gasped because it felt unreal, like stepping into a storybook that had been closed to us since birth. Maven squeezed my hand so tight it hurt, but I didn't pull away. His small fingers trembled against mine, and I knew mine were shaking too. We wanted to run, bolt through the gap while no one was looking. It would be quick. A dash. Just a taste of the world we envied every single day. But then the fear came. The kind of fear that doesn't shout but whispers. What if we didn't make it back in time? What if the gate closed and trapped us outside, or worse, if the guards turned and saw us? Still, we edged closer. The smell of gasoline from the van mixed with the night air, making our hearts pound even harder. We could almost feel the road beneath our bare feet. We could almost see ourselves blending into the shadows like the children we used to spy on from our car windows. Kids who ran free in dirt-stained shirts, laughing like life owed them nothing. Then a sound cracked through the moment. A guard sneezed, loud, rough, unexpected. We froze. The clipboard dropped slightly from his hand, his head turned. The flashlight beam swung, slicing across the van, bouncing dangerously close to where we stood hidden behind a half-open garage panel. Our hearts stopped. Maven's nails dug into my skin, urging retreat. My body wanted to push forward, but my mind screamed louder, "Not tonight. Not yet." We pulled back together, sliding into the shadows as the van rolled inside. The gates closed with a metallic groan, and just like that, the world outside vanished again. We collapsed against the wall, breaths ragged, bodies shaking. We hadn't gone through, not even touched the edge of the road, but something inside us had changed forever. That single draft of night air carried more life than all the luxury we had ever been smothered in. And even though fear had dragged us back, we knew we were closer now, closer than ever before. Because for the first time, freedom wasn't just a dream. It had a smell, a sound, a taste. And we swore, as our chests rose and fell in the dark garage, that next time, we wouldn't just stand there breathing it in. We would step into it. Every night after that first taste of freedom, we couldn't sleep the same way again. It was like something in us had been switched on, and no matter how hard we tried to switch it off, it refused to dim. That draft of fresh air still lingered in our lungs, and the sound of the gate rolling open replayed in our heads like a song we couldn't stop humming. So we kept trying. Quietly, carefully, as though the house itself was listening to us. We planned our steps like soldiers in training, counting down the seconds it took for the guards to check a vehicle, measuring how long the gates stayed open before sliding shut again. Sometimes we even whispered code names to each other. Freedom was sky. Fear was chains. Every night, our little mission felt less like curiosity and more like survival. But trying again and again came with its own dangers. We didn't notice how restless we had become until the guardians started to. They were trained to read patterns, and our patterns were slipping out of control. We used to wake up smiling at breakfast, grateful for pancakes stacked like little towers and fruit juices lined up in crystal glasses. Now we stared at the plates too long, our minds wandering back to the garage and the sound of those groaning gates. We barely touched the food. One guardian, Mrs. Glenn, raised her brow and asked if we were feeling sick. We shook our heads quickly, too quickly, as if denying a crime. During the day we had to pretend to be normal. We put on our pressed clothes, combed our hair neatly, and walked the polished marble floors like we were supposed to. But our eyes always drifted to windows, to doors, to any glimpse of the world we weren't allowed to touch. And the guardians noticed. One evening, Maven couldn't help himself. While the others were busy setting the dining table, he sneaked out to the corridor that overlooked the driveway. He stayed too long, gripping the railing like he was ready to leap into another life. By the time I pulled him back, one of the helpers had spotted us. She didn't say anything then, but the way her eyes narrowed told us she knew something wasn't right. And the hardest part? Pretending nothing had changed when everything inside us had. Our laughter sounded hollow, our playtime forced. Even when we were given the latest video games, we played them like robots, eyes flicking back to each other as if saying, "When do we go again?" At night, lying on silk sheets that felt more like chains, we whispered our frustrations. "They're watching us," Maven would say. "But we can't stop now," I'd reply. We both knew it. Stopping meant letting the walls win, letting the gate become just another decoration instead of the doorway to life. The guardians grew stricter. They started checking in more often, peeking into our rooms at odd hours, even double-locking the garage when they thought we weren't paying attention. But suspicion only fed our determination. If they were guarding us this hard, then maybe what lay beyond really was worth the fight. Every glance, every slip, every lie we told carved us deeper into this secret life we were living. We weren't just two boys in a mansion anymore. We were prisoners planning an escape no matter how long it took. And though fear shadowed us, the taste of freedom still whispered louder. Because once you've breathed the air of the outside even for a second, nothing inside ever feels like enough again. The first cracks didn't come from the mansion walls. They came from us. From brothers who had always shared everything, from toys to secrets, suddenly no longer breathing the same rhythm. It started small. Maven grew impatient. He didn't want to wait for perfect timing or careful planning. Every time we studied the guards, every time we traced the gate with our eyes, he whispered, "Why can't we just go now?" His voice shook like a storm trapped in a glass jar. At first, I laughed it off. I told him freedom wasn't about rushing. It was about surviving once we got there. But he didn't laugh back. His eyes burned with something I hadn't seen before: desperation. One night, while the house slept and the cameras blinked their red dots in the corners, we argued in whispers that felt louder than thunder. "We're wasting time," he hissed. "If we don't try now, we'll never make it out. And end up caught? Locked up tighter than before?" I shot back. "You don't get it, Maven. We need to be smart. One wrong step and this dream dies." But he wasn't listening. He paced the room like a caged lion, fists clenched, face red. "I'm tired of plans. Tired of waiting. I'd rather fail out there than keep pretending in here." His words hit me like knives. We'd always been a team, but now he was breaking away, his hunger for escape greater than his fear of the unknown. I wanted to pull him back, but part of me understood. That taste of outside had infected us both, just in different ways. That night, we didn't sleep side by side like we used to. He turned his back to me, and for the first time, silence built a wall between us. Inside that silence, one truth echoed. Freedom wasn't just pulling us forward, it was pulling us apart. We thought we knew our parents. Powerful, untouchable, always busy, their voices carried more through phone calls than through the halls of our home. But the twist came when we least expected it. They came back earlier than planned. No grand announcement, no warning. Just the sound of the front doors opening and their laughter spilling into the mansion. We froze. Hearts pounding, eyes wide, we shoved our torn shirts deep into the back of the closet, pulled on pressed designer clothes and straightened our hair. The mansion that had become our playground of secrets suddenly turned into a prison again. They walked in with their usual grace, dressed in wealth that seemed to shine brighter than the chandeliers. But this time there was something different in their eyes. They were watching us, not just seeing us. Every glance felt like an inspection. Every smile like a mask. Over dinner, Mother leaned in, her voice calm but sharp. "Your guardians tell us strange things. That you prefer rags. That you refuse luxury. Is it true?" We forced a laugh, shaking our heads. "They exaggerate. We just wanted to play differently." Father set his fork down, the sound echoing louder than it should have. "Play is one thing. But rejecting what we've built for you? That's another." His tone cut deep, not angry but disappointed. That was worse. We lied again, pretending, acting like the dutiful children they wanted. But beneath the table, our knees touched, and in that secret contact we reminded each other. Stay quiet, stay smart. The twist wasn't their words, though. It was their sudden attention. 4 years, they'd been shadows in our lives, appearing only for birthdays and quick holidays. But now, in those 3 days, they filled the house with gifts, promises, and presents. New gaming consoles, golden watches, even plans for another vacation to Dubai and Paris. But luxury didn't taste the same anymore. We chewed on fine meals and felt empty. Their eyes never left us, as if they were trying to peel away our secrets. We realized something chilling: they weren't just back to love us. They were back to test us too. And as we smiled at them, our hearts whispered in unison. We couldn't let them find out. Not yet. We never thought the walls would close in on us the way they did. For weeks, we had moved like shadows, slipping past doors, memorizing codes, studying the men at the gate, rehearsing escape in whispers only we could hear. We were proud of ourselves, clever, daring, united. We thought no one could catch us. Not in that vast mansion, not under the eyes of busy guardians who often turned away when their phones buzzed. But parents are different. Parents, even the ones who seem far away, always have their eyes sharper than you expect. It started with little things. A plate of food left half-eaten, a mud stain on Havil's sneakers, a smudge of dirt Maven forgot to wipe from under his nails. We thought no one noticed, but they did. Mother's gaze lingered longer on us. Father's questions became oddly precise. Where had we been? Why were we tired after doing nothing? Why did we whisper too much? We dodged, lied, and laughed. Yet behind every smile they gave, we could sense something waiting, like a trap being built around us brick by brick. The breaking point came on a quiet Saturday evening. We had finally cracked the garage codes, the thrill making our hearts race faster than the guard's footsteps. The garage was freedom's doorstep. We crouched in the shadows, eyes wide at the sight of the giant gates and the men guarding them. They joked, shared cigarettes, argued over football. They looked so normal. We envied them. They could step outside whenever they pleased. Meanwhile, we were princes imprisoned in gold. Tomorrow, Maven whispered, we'll get closer. We'll find a way. We nodded in silent agreement. But when we crept back to the inner house, our hearts almost stopped. Sitting in the living room, calm as still water, were our parents. Where are you coming from? Father asked. His voice wasn't angry. That was the worst part. It was calm, almost too calm. Mother's eyes locked on us, soft yet unblinking. Come. Sit. We froze. Our secret world had just shattered, and they were the ones holding the pieces. We sat, trembling slightly. The silence was heavy, the kind that made breathing hard. Then Father leaned forward. You've been planning something, haven't you? We tried to deny it, shaking our heads, laughing nervously. But then he pulled out something from the side table. Our little notepad. The one we had hidden under the mattress. It was filled with codes, sketches of gates, arrows showing movements of guards. Our stomachs dropped. You left this behind, he said. A good soldier never leaves his plans behind. Maven's eyes burned with tears. Havel clenched his fists. We had been caught, not by chance but by strategy. They had been watching too. Mother's voice trembled, not with anger, but with something deeper. Why, my boys? Why would you want to run from everything we gave you? And then it all spilled out. The pain, the longing, the truth we had carried in silence. We're tired of being trapped. Havel burst out, his voice cracking. We don't care about the cars or the gold or the food. We want freedom. We want to feel dirt under our feet without guards chasing us. We want to play without worrying someone will kidnap us. We want to be kids. Maven's tears fell freely. We envy the poor children. They don't have what we have, but they have freedom. They laugh. They run. They fall and get up. We watch them and feel like we're the ones who are poor. Silence filled the room again, heavier than before. But this time our words were out and there was no taking them back. Father leaned back, rubbing his temples. For the first time we saw his face soften, the mask of the billionaire slipping. He looked human, tired, vulnerable. Mother reached for our hands. You think we wanted this? To keep you locked away? Do you think we enjoyed seeing you lonely behind these walls? We were afraid, terrified. The world isn't kind to the children of the rich. Kidnapping, betrayal, danger, it's real. We wanted to protect you. Maybe we overdid it. Her words broke us. All along we thought they were selfish, blind to our suffering. But here she was, eyes glistening with unshed tears, confessing her fear. Father's voice followed, steady but gentler now. We built walls to protect you. But in doing so we built a cage. That was never the intention. We just didn't know how else to keep you safe. We couldn't stop crying. The walls we had built inside ourselves were breaking too. For the first time we weren't enemies at the dinner table, we were family, raw, broken, and reaching for understanding. We told them everything. How we wore rags, how we studied the guards, how we planned escape. We admitted it all, not out of fear but out of release. And instead of punishing us, they listened. Truly listened. By the end, Father stood, placed his hands on our shoulders, and said something we'll never forget. You want freedom? Then we will give it to you. Not reckless freedom, but guided freedom. The world is yours to see, and we'll walk with you this time, not lock you away from it. Mother kissed our foreheads, whispering, no more cages. Just care. The next day everything changed. The gates that once seemed like iron prisons opened for us. Not to sneak out, but to step out with our parents by our side. They took us to the park, not in black SUVs with tinted windows, but walking. Just walking. We ran barefoot on the grass, laughed until our lungs hurt, ate roasted corn from a roadside vendor, and played football with kids who had no idea who we were. For the first time in our lives we felt alive. When night came, we sat together around the dining table, not in silence but in laughter, stories, and promises. Father spoke of balance, of wealth that didn't have to choke life but could fuel it. Mother promised more days outside, more play, more adventure. And we promised too. Promised never to hide again, never to let envy swallow us, but to speak up, to trust them. That night as we lay in bed, we looked at each other and smiled. Not because we had escaped, but because we no longer needed to. The mansion was no longer a prison. It was home. And for the first time, happiness wasn't hidden in rags or secrets. It was right there, in love, in trust, in family. The breaking point didn't destroy us. It rebuilt us. Stronger. Together.